This is the Crossing Bridges podcast, addressing the topics of leadership, criminal justice, and fatherhood. How can we become better leaders? Where are all the daddies? Why is crime at an all-time high? Here is your host, Bayonle Arashi.
I am glad again to be back on your screen and all your podcast streaming platform. It's another episode of Crossing Bridges podcast with Bayonle Arashi, episode 14 of the show already today. And today, really, it's not a very, very good one. As much as possible as I have tried really not to pay attention to the issues of gun violence in the United States, it is becoming unrealistic to look away. You just cannot continue to look away. So this is a sort of a sober episode of the show today, especially at the beginning of it. And I just want to commiserate with every family member, every father out there, every mother out there, every uncle, sister, grandfather, and grandmother that have lost a loved one to gun violence over the last, God knows how many decades, but especially over the last few years, when the issues of gun violence has really skyrocketed in the United States. Some folks have different kind of arguments. Some say gun don't kill people, that people kill people. That is their argument. That is what they believe in. Some folks say you can't take our gun from us. You're going to take our constitutional rights away from us. Some believe it is political. The Democrats want to take their gun. Republicans don't want to give their gun away. But the truth of the matter is, every week it has become almost a weekly thing that lives are being lost. As of today, the date of recording this podcast, the 10th of April, because sometimes I record the podcast ahead of schedule due to my own personal schedule. There have been 146, hear the number again, 146 mass shooting in the United States alone. In the 4th month of a new year, 146 mass shooting. And none of this mass shooting has ended in killing nothing less than 2 persons. Nothing less. Sometimes it is more. Sometimes you just can't quantify the injury that other people suffered that is not reported or recorded or even mentioned. And still, the political leaders that we have just refused to do anything about it. They have just refused to do anything about it. So, again, I just want to say on behalf of every of my own family member and of myself, I just want to commiserate with every one of you out there that have sadly lost a loved one in this crazy moment in America, in this unfortunate moment in America. And I really, really hope soon and someday we will have our leaders rising up finally to do what is right, to do what is just. I personally am not against people protecting their constitutional right of owning a weapon, There is nothing against that. But there has to be ways around this. I know there have been many recommendations in the past that we don't want to pay attention to, but I really hope somehow there is a solution to this madness, because there is no other word for it. It is an absolute madness that every week someone somewhere just pick up a gun, go to a crowded place and start shooting at people. I know they have said a lot of things. They've said it is emotional trigger, it is mental health decay or pandemic, it is COVID, what COVID has done to people. There have been so many excuses defending gun violence in this country. And I don't know how long we are going to do this for. That is on this note that I'm really starting the show, unfortunately, the podcast for this week and for today. I hope you guys are hanging in there. You guys continue to pray for your family, continue to pray to be watched over, continue to read your Psalms, continue to avoid crowded places, because that is the new normal now. You see children crying on buses. There is so much violence. There's so much sadness. There's so much bitterness around the country for something that can be avoided, for something can be done about it. I move on now from that. And secondly, on the show also, the issue of violence, the issue of high crime rate in the city of Houston. I recorded about a week ago when the current mayor of Houston, Mayor Sylvester Turner, was talking about how the amount of murder has drastically reduced in the city. Yes, the numbers were there, and of course, they were different from what happened last year. But the truth is, there is no time. There is no time you put on the TV in Houston that you don't see in the first 3 news of the day that someone somewhere is either being shot, being robbed, or someone is about to go to jail, or someone is already going to jail. The high level of crime in this city and across the nation is at an all-time high. And I just feel this is just a personal call. This is what I can think about it, that we as fathers, we as friends, we as brothers, we really have to rise up and take care of our loved ones. Look out for people that we know are suffering any form of violence or emotional trigger or any form of mental health, and offer as much help as we can. And it's really, really heartbreaking out there. And I'm really just hopeful. It's so sad and it's so unfortunate that I'm starting this episode on this kind of note, but it is happening. And if you really, if you are a thinker, if you are a parent, if you have people that you definitely love and you don't want anything to happen to, it calls for concern, that when your loved one is actually stepping out in the morning, you are not certain of anything about them. There were, I mean, where do I start from? Some stories that I saw just this past week, a mother of 4 that was in her house, somebody broke into her house and shot her several times, killing her at the age of 39. And for what reason, we still don't know yet. Issue of 2 friends, or we don't know whether business partners, driving on a freeway, decided to, God knows what happened between them, exchange gunshots in the car, and somebody was dead by the time the cops got there. The car has to veer off the road until they saw that somebody was already dead, and so many other things. Teenagers going to rob folks that work and earn their hard-earned money, are going to cash their money at the bank, chasing them down, taking their money, getting shot in the on the way, and ending up in prison. There is just so much, and I really just hope that this ends soon enough. I'll be back right after this short break.
Addressing the topics of leadership, criminal justice, and fatherhood. How can we become better leaders? Where are all the daddies? Why is crime at an all-time high?
Welcome back to the podcast. I haven't said all that. I'm not apologizing for starting on that note, but you can probably sense a little bit of disgust that I have at the whole situation of what is going on in our country, in the society. And this is the reason why Crossing Bridges podcast was actually started in the first place. For me, I keep saying it every time, in case you don't know, I work in the criminal justice system, and most of the time I have, over the years that I've been in the system, I have come to look at the issue beyond just taking care of the convicted inmates in the custody of the criminal justice system, and looking at what and how did those inmates come about? How did they get to that situation that they are? And how can we, as a people, stop this menace, stop the rate of recidivism, the rate of people going out of jail, out of prison, and coming back after a couple of months. Some make it as much as a year or 2 years, but they always end up coming back. And what has led me to it is one of the things I have observed is fatherlessness. There are no fathers in the house. The high rate of crime, which fatherlessness is one of the cause of, because many of our young men have no mentor at home, people that they see that are doing things that a man should do. The moms are saddled with responsibility that is necessarily not theirs. They have to work, they have to go out to work 1, 2, 3 jobs just to be able to get by to pay the bills. The kid is at daycare or with some uncle or sister that probably is the baby, him or herself, and then the condition continues to spiral and then repeat itself from there. So it's a big issue. Also, one of the issues I saw is the lack of leadership. Even some of the leaders in the community, some of the leaders in the neighborhood, or some of the people that should rise up as leaders are not rising up to that occasion. There is so much pressure. There is so much anxiety. There is so much chaos. There is so much lack of discipline among young people, and the condition kept getting worse. Young boys don't have anything to channel their energy on. So what they think of most of the time is something that will end up putting them behind the bars or behind the wall. And that is the reason I decided to start Crossing Bridges podcast. And last week, the last episode of the show, I shared with you, my fans and my viewers and my listeners, excerpt from the book, 2006 book written by the amazing Brian Tracy, an author, a leader, a motivational speaker, a master teacher, called Eat That Frog. It's not a very big book, but it's a very strong book. It's a dynamite as far as I'm concerned. And I shared with you last week 7 great rules of success. They were really key. So if you have not watched that episode of the show, of that podcast yet, I want to ask you, as soon as you finish listening to this one, or you can just pause on this one and go back to episode 13 of the podcast to listen to that. I am sure you are going to get value for your time, and you're going to get value for 30 minutes in that particular episode. Those rules, if you can chase them, if you can follow them, and one of the biggest one, of course, is the power of using your mind the right way and writing goals down. The power that you have, or that you can harness when you write your goals down, when you write things that you want to do down, and what you need to do after writing it down. It is all stated in that particular one. Today, I'm going to continue on that with some examples that I learned from that book still, and I'm going to share with you the 21 information, 21 happiness and satisfaction and great rules that you can also follow that will really catapult your life from where you are right now to an enviable height, because there is a lot of power that is in our mind. There's a lot of things that we can do with this mind that God has given to us, because he has given us the power to be able to make wealth, and he is the only one that can give it that, which is the Almighty God. But our mind can turn somebody from from a prison cell into a business leader, into a powerful thought leader, into a community leader. Your life can change. You can rebuild yourself if you can put some of the information that I have shared over the last few months on the podcast, or that I'm going to share with you today into use. It's 21 of them, and hopefully maybe I can give you up to 10 before my time is up. If I am not able to, I assure you that I'm going to continue next week, and hopefully I can also bring someone that can also share life experience with you. It's been a while we have guests on the show, on the podcast, and there are some of my guests I need to bring back again. Some of them promise to come back if I am able to record up to 10 episodes of the show, and I'm so inspired by what some of them have done and how far they have pushed me to keep going. And thankfully, episode 14 of the podcast is what you are listening to right now. I'm very excited. I'm very thankful for all the feedbacks, for the ones that I've watched on YouTube, the ones that I've listened on all podcast streaming platforms, even as I await the approval of Apple Podcasts to approve the podcast on their platform. But so far, we have had a very, very good download rate, and I know we can do better. So if you are listening or if you are watching this podcast on YouTube or any platform, please do me a favor, subscribe to the channel or follow my personal page at Bayonle Arashi on all social media platforms. Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, YouTube, or share the audio with someone that you know that needs to listen, someone that you love, someone that you want their life to change for better. So here we go. I'm going to share a couple of those successful rules with you of how your life can get from where it is right now, no matter where you are, how you can kill the spirit of procrastination and just put your life back on track and start going. And before you know it, your life will be very ahead of others, and you will be glad that you encountered this podcast. The key to happiness, satisfaction, great success, and wonderful feeling of personal power and effectiveness is for you to develop the habit of eating your frog first thing every day when you start work. Remember, I said that Brian Tracy said in that book, he said, when you wake up with the mindset of eating a big frog in the morning, you will know that there is nothing worse that you can do for that day. And the reason why he said that was very simple, that every day when you wake up, you have to attack the biggest obstacle in front of you first. Do not think about it. Do not postpone it. Do not keep it to tomorrow. As soon as you encounter it, as soon as you face it, just attack it, and of course go about it. So here is the summary of the 21 great ways to stop procrastinating and get more things done faster, and of course in a lot of ways that you can see your life improve. The first one, of course, is set the table. Set the table. Decide exactly what you want. Clarity is power. Clarity is essential. Write out your goals and objectives before you begin. A goal that is written down, like I said, has already been imbibed in the ground, has already been brought to life. Once a goal goes from you thinking about it to writing it down, you have already planted that seed. That is a seed that you have planted there. So you have to first set the table before you. That is, what do I want to do? After that thought comes to your mind, which is one of the greatest secrets shared after the Holy Bible. The best book that I told you I have read is Think and Grow Rich. Think and Grow Rich is the best book ever written. I've mentioned that many, many times. And that is what Brian Tracy is repeating here in that book, that you have to set the table by doing what? By writing your goals down, by first taking that first action of just going beyond thinking about it and actually write it down. The second one is plan every day in advance. You have to plan your tomorrow. For example, today, I have already done my 14 to 15 hours at work. Today, as I'm recording this episode, I have already told myself before coming home that I'm going to work out. I'm going to do my 30 minutes to 45 minutes workout, and I'm going to record this podcast. And that was planned yesterday. I planned it, and that's exactly what I'm doing now. Execution is easier when you plan your day ahead of time. Think on paper. Every minute you spend in planning can save you 5 or 10 minutes in execution. Once you put something down that I'm going to do this, just go for it. Don't give it any thought. Don't keep wandering around. Just say, okay, I have thought about it, and here we go. Plan it in advance. The next day, start eating that frog. Start taking one bite at a time, and before you know it, your goal is already on track. You are going to get things done once you plan your day in advance. It's a very, very, very important part of success you have to focus on. The number 3, of course, this one is very, very key. Apply the 80-20 rule to everything. I don't know if you have never heard about the 80-20 rule before, and it states that 20% of your activities will account for 80% of your results. 20% of your activities will account for 80% of your result. Always concentrate your effort on that top 20%. Whatever you want to do, just if you don't understand the top 80-20 rule, Google it. It's going to give you that information. But what it says is very, very simple, that whatever you want to do, you only need 20% of effort in that thing. Once you put in 20% of effort, the 80% of it will show up in your result. I'm hoping that I can give you 7 more, but of course, let me take a short break now, and I will be right back to continue.
Addressing the topics of leadership, criminal justice, and fatherhood. How can we become better leaders? Where are all the daddies? Why is crime at an all-time high?
Welcome back. Straight to number 4 rule now. Consider the consequences. Consider the consequences of your action. Your most important task of priorities are those that can have the most serious consequences, positive or negative, on your life or work. Focus on this above all else. Consider the consequences of your action. Whatever you want to do, always remember that you are making a choice. It is either you make that choice of suffering the pain today, or you know that you're going to have a bunch of regret tomorrow. So you have to always consider the consequences of whatever you want to do, and put it in thought that, look, I am making this decision and I'm willing to defend it. So it's very, very important for you to consider that before you go ahead and consider any of your action. Consider the consequences of it. Consider what you are going to do. Consider if you can defend that particular action that you're about to take. The 5th one is also very important. Practice creative procrastination. Brian Tracy described it. He said, since you can't do everything, you must learn to deliberately put off those tasks that are of low value, that are not very, very important, so that you have enough time to do the few things that really, really count. You have to practice. That's why he called it creative procrastination. This is not everything that you have to do. Everything is not important. You have to do the most important thing first. There are things that are more important than others. So for you to be able to make better goals, to achieve your goal faster, you have to prioritize your goal by practicing what he calls creative procrastination. That's the 5th one. The 6th one is use the ABCDE method continually. Before you begin work on a list of tasks, take a few moments to organize them by the value of priority, so you can be sure of working on your most important activities. Put A, B, C, D down as a number. Write it down and put your task right in front of each alphabet. A, I want to learn how to drive today. B, this is what I want to do. And then when you do that, you now have to take a look at either which of this is most important. And that is how you will be able to determine which one you have to attack first, which of the frog you are going to eat first, as Brian Tracy put it in that great book of his. And I am really, really hoping that some of you will not just listen to the podcast and say, okay, I've heard everything about that book, I don't need to read it again. There's so much more power, there's so much more knowledge that you can pick up from that book if you do decide to pick it up and listen. And either listen on audio book or read it. It's less than 150 pages book. And I think I got mine on Thrift Book, and it cost me less than $15. So if you really want more knowledge on what it takes on how to stop procrastination, or how to kill procrastination and put your life on track for excellence, for results, please pick up that book, Eat That Frog by Brian Tracy. I'm going to go on now, and I'm going to give you the 7th one. Like I said, I'm hoping I can give you 10 out of the 21. Hopefully next week I can share the last 11 or 10 with you on the podcast. Focus on key result areas. Focus on key result area. Identify and determine those results that you absolutely positively have to get to do your job well, and work on them all day long. Focus on key result areas. You have to focus on the ones that are, after putting it down A, B, C, D, E, then it will give you a clear picture on the ones you have to tackle, the most important ones. I just told you my own schedule for the last 24 hours. I said I was going to work. I went to my regular job for 14 to 15 hours, woke up at 3 a.m. in the morning, have my light workout, have my prayer first, have my light workout, have my coffee for the morning, and then drive to work about 45 minutes, do my 12-hour shift, drive back home for another hour, workout, and now recording my podcast, pick up a light dinner, and go to bed. Hopefully I can get 6 to 6.5 hours of sleep. That's my own job. And that's how you have to focus on key result area. There are key result area in your life that you have to pay attention to. Everything, you cannot do everything. Everything is not important. But if you focus on the key ones, it's going to help you to be able to get results faster. The law of three is number 8. The law of three: identify the 3 things you do in your work that account for 90% of your contribution, and focus on getting them done before anything else. You will then have more time to your family and personal life. The law of 3. That means out of what you write down in A, B, C, D, E, which is still your list, you have to choose the top 3 of them. What are the most essential things that you have to do out of them? Like I said, you cannot do everything. What are the top 3 things among them? It is called the law of 3. To elaborate on that as well, pick up that book. You're going to learn it there. And that is you identifying 3 things that are very essential, that are the most important. And when you focus and attack those 3 things, before you know it, you are able to get a lot of things done during the day. And then there will still be something left for you, but they will not be as overwhelming as they will naturally be if you don't use the law of 3. I'm really against time here, but I got 2 more to give to you before rounding off the podcast episode for this week. Prepare thoroughly before you begin. That's the 9th one. Prepare thoroughly before you begin. Have everything you need at hand before you start. I know this is not what some smart people say, but this is a very important part when it comes to you killing procrastination and having success and putting your life on track to achieve some form of success. Have everything you need at hand before you start. Assemble all the papers, information, tools, work materials, and numbers you might require so that you can get started and keep going. You need to have everything you need before you get started. Prepare thoroughly before you attack those task. That's the number. That's the 9th one. The 10th one, which is the final one for today on this very sober episode of Crossing Bridges podcast, as I was really disgusted at the beginning of it, and it is the positive disgust. It's a positive anger to what is going on in our society. But before I go back to that, the 10th one for this week: take it one oil barrel at a time. That's what the title is. You can accomplish the biggest and most complicated job if you just complete it one step at a time. One day at a time, one step at a time. Easy does it, and you can accomplish a lot if you just take things one step at a time. This is about the first 10 I can bring to you on the 21 great rule of how to kill or stop procrastination and move your life on track. Put your life on track for positioning for success. Next week or next time, hopefully when I come back on the podcast, I'm going to give you the remaining nuggets and we can continue to share together. I really hope you enjoy the episode of the podcast. I implore you to share to on YouTube, on the all podcast streaming platform. Talk about the podcast. And also personally, I want to urge you, if you have any form of mental health issue, any form of depression, if you need help, there are so many hotlines available for help. Do not take laws into your own hand. Do not engage in road rage. Do not engage in unnecessary crime that will destroy your life. I will be praying for you, and I will really be hoping for the best for you. My name is Bayonle Arashi. It's been my pleasure bringing the episode of the podcast to you. If you are a leader in any capacity, whether as an elementary school teacher, a principal, or a leader in middle school or high school, I offer a free service of life coaching or of teaching, of presentation, of live speaking to kids, teenagers, and young adults to hopefully teach them about life. I share some of my experience with them growing up in Africa, in Nigeria, and of course my entrepreneur and immigrant journey in America, and more importantly, the story behind the walls with them, because nothing beat experience, as they say. I'll be looking forward to share with you. You can reach out to me on my website, www.bayonlearashi.com, or on all social media platforms at Bayonle Arashi. You will be glad you did, and I will be looking forward to hearing from you. See you guys next week, God willing. Have a great one. I'm always rooting for you. God bless you. I love you guys. Bye-bye now.
Thank you for listening to the Crossing Bridges podcast with Bayonle Arashi. Your comments, suggestions, and ideas are welcomed. Follow Bayonle on all social media platforms at Bayonle Arashi, or visit www.bayonlearashi.com for coaching and speaking engagements. See you next time.